Here we are. So
Cool.
I've got Madigan Paine here, who's a history teacher now, and she's going to give some reflection on her experiences, what she can remember from History 300, which you probably did 5 or 6 or more years ago, right?
I actually was looking on my transcript. It was 2017, semester 2, 2017.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
Madigan is one of the few people that I'm lucky enough to have stayed in touch with after finishing her studies in history and degree and so on, because she actually wrote a really great paper on the Carver ceremony in Fiji, which she went and visited with Professor Patrick Nunn, probably around 2017 as well, I'm guessing, something like that.
It was, 2018.
2018. And it became a chapter in a book that I've edited and has just been published called Identities in Transition or something. What's it called, Madigan?
Oh, don't test me. Transitional selves? Transitional selves, isn't it?
You know, it's not like I publish books every week, but I don't pay much attention to the titles, and I'm really bad at promoting them and all that sort of stuff. But they do well. They do quite well. And this was a really interesting book, and it's a really interesting chapter. So Madigan and I have stayed in touch in that sort of space. Now, I'm going to stop talking because this is your space in a sense, Madigan. Can you tell us where you're at, in terms of your own career as a history teacher? Or tell us that first before I actually ask you about History 300.
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm an English and humanities teacher in Toowoomba. And before I moved to Toowoomba at the start of the year, I was in Far North Queensland. And I was a mostly humanities teacher up there. And I did a bit of subject coordination and things like that for the junior humanities curriculum. And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment.
Okay. So humanities is not exactly history, is it?
No. So I'll throughout the year, I'll teach history, geography, civics, and then depending on the school, economics as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So
it's a bit of a mixture.
Yeah. So then, if you can cast your mind back to History 300 in 2017, how did you find the course overall?
Overall, I think that was probably one of my most challenging times at uni, that subject, I think. But overall, I thought it was I really enjoyed it because it was really challenging and I like challenges. And I think, I don't know, it just got me to think a lot, and I had to kind of psych myself up to each tutorial because I knew that my brain was going to be tried and tested every week. So that's what I remember specifically. But I enjoyed it overall. Yeah,
great. I guess good learning comes with a certain amount of tension, doesn't it? What we call cognitive dissonance. Oh my God, that's another idea. How do I fit it into what I think I know? Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Then what did you get out of it? So you got challenged, but what did you get out of it? Were there some takeaways, or has it left a kind of more diffuse impact on your life and your teaching, your thinking about history?
I think at the end, I suppose, and maybe this isn't exactly what you want to hear, but I think at the end of that course, I got a sense of achievement because I felt like at the end, I finally understood it. It was I'm pretty sure it was week 12. And I was like, oh, I get it. It's been 12 weeks of trauma, but I finally, I finally get it. And what was the other question? How's it impacting my teaching?
Has it given you maybe tools for thinking about how you work in your profession now?
Yeah. So this is one thing I think about often, especially when I'm talking to teachers that did their degree at other universities. I think the advantage that I got from USC, and particularly from the history courses I did, was that we were looking more conceptually, I feel. like we were discussing concepts, and we were I think what I learned, and my advantage over other teachers, is that I really learned history in the sense of history as like a practice, I guess, as opposed to just like, you know, learning about, I don't know, some obscure medieval European 20-year period or something and becoming an expert on that. Like I understand, I think, the concept of history and historiography. That's always a tongue twister. More than some other people, I think, particularly because of that course and learning about, like, I guess, how do we do history and what are the implications of how we actually do the history?
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I think we often confuse history with the data, you could say.
Yeah.
The data is there and it's really interesting. Otherwise, I don't think any of us would be there. But it's not, the historical mind itself is the mind that understands the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I think if you actually look at the Australian curriculum and you look at the rationale of the history curriculum, like the rationale is informed by, I guess, the conceptual side of history, and I understand the rationale, but I think, like, I understand it and I get what they mean by historical empathy and contestability and all of these terms because of courses like History 300, His 300. And like, I guess when you're in the moment, you don't I certainly was just like, oh my God, this is so challenging and for what? But I think now that I'm in the profession, I'm working in the space, it is an advantage because, yeah, I think I'm able to teach better because I am coming from a conceptual, like everything I learned can be applied to any context, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And it should, good learning should be transferable like that. It should be not site specific, you could say. So you've talked about the struggles you've had. Was there anything in particular that you could point to that you found challenging? Was there one thing that stood out above all the others or not?
I'm trying to remember if it was with this course, but I don't know if you remember, but I always struggled with Marxism. That just like always threw me. And I think like usually conversations about modernity was always a bit challenging, but I got there in the end, evidently, because I wrote that like piece on modernity. But from memory, that was like probably the main, I don't know, I think I struggled with the abstract initially because I always needed examples.
Yeah.
And it's hard to give examples for these really abstract concepts. But again, that's like just gone on to improve and inform my practice because I always try to explain abstract stuff through examples because I know that's what I need.
Yep.
So like, yeah.
That's great. And to me, history can't be done without the examples. We have to have, you know, whether it's Australian history, medieval history, ancient China, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the sites where Marxist, feminist, Foucauldian, whatever it is, these concepts get tested. Otherwise, we just live in a fantasy world of floaty ideas that are not actually concrete.
Yeah.
And of course, as a teacher, it's nearly always the really interesting example that you give from some time of history that catches a student's attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as the curriculum's just been revised, I don't know if you're across that, the new Australian curriculum, like version 9's just been revised and it's come out. And so the students that are doing His 300, if they're going to go and be teachers, this is what they'll be teaching. And if you actually have a look at it, they've gone away from like, you know, teaching the specific, this happened on this date. And they are actually taking more of a, like, they're kind of like zooming out and taking more of a conceptual approach. And that's actually, so the Australian curriculum is moving towards that. So I think that obviously this course will be even more beneficial as like with this new curriculum as well.
That's really encouraging. Yeah, because I, as you know, get frustrated with the fact that teachers, you know, teaching kids who are going to come into our courses here have taught a kind of potted history where it's about the dates and people and so on. Because year 11 and 12 kids particularly, but even younger, can often get the ideas, but they're not exposed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I love to explain contestability with the example of like a fight in the schoolyard, you know, because like, you know, different perspectives. How do we know what's actually the truth? Like that kind of thing. And like the younger kids, they get it when you explain it like that. They understand it. Oh, of course, there's, you know, we're not always sure yours, you know, your perspective is informed by your worldview, blah, 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 blah. So they can get it.
Yeah. Okay, so last question for you, Madigan. What would you give as a piece of advice to a new student in History 300?
Do your readings.
That's
Use Wikipedia to get, you know, because I feel like Wikipedia is actually underrated. I feel like it explains quite complex stuff pretty, you know, for the normal person.
I actually donate to Wikipedia every year.
There you go.
But I think it's also an underrated resource. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess like I suppose like one thing that because I'm not sure if the structure for the assessment is like you do the first half and then you get more feedback and then you do the rest.
Something like that. A bit from when you did it.
Okay. I assume it would have, but I think like one thing that I take away, or one thing that I would suggest is like really making sure you like read your feedback and query, you know, what you don't understand, and there's like no dumb questions. Like I would ask so many questions and they will probably seemed a bit silly, but like I don't know, you just need to ask the questions. Like you're not the only person that doesn't understand it. And yeah, that's probably what I would suggest. And like reading your feedback, applying your feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I never know how many students really read feedback that they get on, but it's really, that's where a lot of your learning can occur, for sure.
Absolutely. I would go through and read it like 3 or 4 times, like my essay or my piece with the feedback next to it, to make sure I understand what I can do to be better.
Great. Well, I mean, that's fantastic. I don't have any more questions for you, Madigan. What I want to say is thank you for giving us time. You're on holiday, and I hope you have a really good one.
Thank you. Teacher perks.
Yes, exactly. You've got to have some perks.
Yeah.
And, yeah, no doubt we'll be in touch. Later on. So take care and enjoy yourself.
No worries. Thank you. Bye.